So I pay myself £1,234 a month as a salary for my business that I built here on YouTube. Now that amount covers all of my monthly expenditure and it also gives me some additional spending money as well. I explained all of the detail in a video last Friday, which has now got quite a lot of views compared to my normal run rate on the channel and quite a lot of interaction in the comment section as well. And going through the comment section, there is a pocket of comments of people who wanted to know a little bit more about the shape by which I take income from my business. People asking, I'm also a business owner. Why would you take money as dividends? Is there any advantage to that? And people also wanting to know how much I've managed to save and invest as well. So that's what I'm going to be doing in this video. We're going to talk about all things dividends. We're going to talk about how it works. We're going to talk about the tax rates. I'm going to talk about how much I've managed to take in dividends since 2021. And I'm also going to talk about where the money is right now. Have I spent it on a car? Did I buy a Rolex? What did I do? But before we get into the detail, I think it's really important for me to state, and this will be obvious to those of you who are loyal viewers of this channel. But for those of you who may not be, who may be finding me for the first time, I want to be unambiguous and be extremely clear in the fact that this is not a flex video. If anything, there will be some really key lessons to maybe take from this, which we'll get to in a moment. But this is not a flex video. And with that said, let's actually talk about how much dividends I've been able to take from my business in the past couple of years. So the number is £82,000. That's what I've been able to take in dividends from my business between 2021 and now. Now, how does dividends actually work? Now, as a business owner, you're entitled to take dividends from your business. However, your business has to be in profit. You cannot take dividends from a loss-making business. And if you do take dividends from your company and you make a loss, then you have requirements to put that money that you took as dividends back into the business. And this is a really important thing because oftentimes people feel, at least when I coach people, people often feel that the business money is your money. And the truth is, if you're set up as a legal entity, which a limited company, for example, is, that's not your money. That money belongs to your business. And therefore, there has to be a transaction between you as the business owner and you and your company, the company that you set up, the limited company that you set up. There has to be a transaction for money coming from the business to you. And the reason why you would take dividends is because from a tax point of view, the tax rate for dividends is very, very different to the income rates that you would generally be compared to or making the comparison with. But one thing that is worthwhile speaking about before I get into the tax rate for dividends is that dividends used to have a very attractive dividend allowance. And a dividend allowance is the amount of money you can take in dividends before you start to pay tax. Once upon a time, it was £5,000. Last tax year, it was £2,000. This current tax year that we're in, it's £1,000. And at the beginning of the new tax year in 2024, it's going to go down from £1,000 to £500. It has definitely been a point of, I guess, conversation and the point of attention by the government as they try to bring in more taxes, really. And for many business owners, it has been very unpalatable to look at the dividend allowance shrink so much within a very, very quick period of time. And so some people may argue that dividends has become less attractive to take as a business owner, and they would be right to a certain extent. But when you start thinking about the tax thresholds, the tax rates, actually there is still an incentive to take money as a dividend from a business if you're a business owner and the business is in profit. So currently how it works, and again, I covered this in the video last Friday, everyone gets £12,570 that they can earn before they start to pay tax at all. So that's your personal allowance, 12,570. Now, there are three tax thresholds in this country. There's basic rate tax threshold, there's a higher rate and additional rate tax thresholds. And each of the tax thresholds has its own income tax rate. So as a basic rate taxpayer, so the threshold is this. Your first 12,570 is tax-free. Then you will pay 20% on any income that you take. When you hit 12,571 all the way up to 50,270, you're paying 20% within that bracket. That's the basic rate tax threshold. Now, if you're earning between £50,271 and £125,140 per year, your tax rate goes from 20% to 40% because now you're in the higher rate tax threshold. And if you're earning over 125,140 a year, then your tax rate goes from 40% to 45%, and that is the additional rate rate threshold. Now note those brackets and note the tax rate. So basic rate 20%, higher rate 40%, additional rate 45%. Now, the reason why dividends is so attractive to a lot of business owners is because if, like me, and if you sit down with an accountant, you run your own business, is the first thing the accountant is going to ask you to do. You take a little amount as a salary to keep you within the personal allowance threshold. I shared last week what I take as a basic salary puts me on about 14,400 roughly per year. So I still pay tax at a basic rate tax rate for the additional above the 12,570, 20%. But if I took additional income and I breached £50,000, then I'll be paying £40,000 on anything above that. So dividends allows you to manage the situation quite cleverly. Now, this is how it tends to work. So if you were to take, for example, in my example, 14,400, for example, you'll pay 20% tax on anything above 12,570. Now, because I take dividends from my business, and I share that I've taken £32,000 thus far this year, paying a rate of 8.75% dividend tax on that £32,000. That's what I would pay because I'm still within the basic rate tax threshold. I've not breached that 50,271 threshold just yet, having taken £32,000 in dividends. So I've taken £32,000 in dividends and I will pay 8.75% in dividend tax. That's a significant reduction to if I took that £32,000 in income salary and paid 20% in tax. And this is where the benefit is in taking dividends as a business owner. And as you can see, as you escalate through to being a higher rate taxpayer where you're paying 40%, well, the comparative dividend rate of tax for someone who is a higher rate taxpayer is 33.75%, and anyone who is an additional rate taxpayer, so earning over £125,140, in opposed to jumping up to 45% in income tax, in the dividends arena, you're paying 39.35%. So when you look at those numbers and you crunch those numbers, or you sit down with an accountant, you start to understand that actually taking dividends has a tax advantage to it. Now, that is very, very controversial. I get it. Someone was in the comment section said that I'm cheating the NHS. This is something that all business owners do. I would argue 95% of business owners do, because this is what is allowable within the tax rules. And you're working to the tax rules. And I mentioned this last week in the video. As a business owner, I say when you invest, tax efficiency first. When you're drawing money from your business, it is also tax efficiency first. Those should be your first considerations. And people will say, why should business owners get this privilege of being able to manage their tax situation? And that is a debate unto its own. My view is that as a business owner, you take a lot of risk. You're not in the security of a full-time job where you're having pension contributions paid for you, you get sick pay, you get death in service. For a lot of business owners like myself, we have to account for all of those things. So the government, because they want to encourage entrepreneurial spirit and they want to encourage business, they allow these tax allowances, these tax variations to exist to help business owners like myself grow and actually earn a living, because it is really, really hard. Now, this leads me on to how much I've actually taken in dividends for my business since 2021. I've already alluded it's £82,000, but how have I actually spent this money? Now, the reality is that I have invested a lot of that money, but things have changed recently with interest rates and so on and so forth. So I'm going to give you a breakdown of how this has actually worked out for me personally. Now, it is worthwhile saying that in the video last Friday, I talked a little bit about the budgeting technique that has got me to this stage that I talk about in my book. And the budgeting technique is to make sure that you, or at least I view it, is to view your income and your expenditure in three different parts. Certainly your expenditure, essentials, non-essentials, then your other. And as hard as it has been for people to believe that, £1,234 is enough for me and my household, and I gave you nuances in my budget that allow me to be able to survive on £1,234, that covers my essentials, my non-essentials, and gives me a little bit of spare cash, additional income, disposable income at the end of the month. I also mentioned in that video that actually most of the dividends that I take goes into my other pot. And if you have read the book, that's all about using money as a tool to work towards life goals that have a financial element, which is an important metric or mechanism to make that thing come true. And the reality is that £82,000 that I've taken from my business has all gone into the other pot. It has either been invested. Now, things have changed over the past couple of months. So in August, I paid off £46,000 on my mortgage because, well, interest rates, I want to be able to keep my costs down. And even though my mortgage is going to go from £518.96 a month to £720 in November, the disposable income that I have from taking £1,234 a month is going to be able to absorb that additional increase in my mortgage payment. Okay, but I've paid off £46,000 on my mortgage in August, and obviously that comes out of the £82,000 dividend that I paid myself over the past couple of years. Now I've got £20,000 in ISAs from the last tax year. I've not maxed out my ISAs for this year just yet, and I also have £16,000 in an emergency fund right now, which is basically my security blanket just in case I needed to pay for a new boiler, for example. I spoke about the fact that I don't like debt. I've had a really tumultuous ride with debt personally, and that's something that I try to avoid at all costs. And yes, we can get into the debate of good debt versus bad debt. I'm talking bad debt here, specifically credit card overdrafts, personal loans, those kind of things. And I guess that's the real lesson here. What I do is not going to work for everyone. You have to find your own way, particularly if you are, running your own business and you're trying to structure your finances in a way that works for you. I may not be the best example of what you should do, and neither should I be, because at the end of the day, your personal circumstances are very, very different to mine. What I think you can take, though, are some fundamental lessons in it. Yes, I try to take dividends as a way to manage my tax situation. That is obviously a priority. But me as a business owner, I keep cash in the business, and I prefer to do that because I never, as a business owner, want to jeopardize the money that's in the business and have that have a negative impact on my personal finances, or vice versa. So if I'm ripping out a ton of money from the business, then I don't have money for my corporation tax, or I don't have money for my VAT returns. Those things aren't healthy. And so I treat my personal finances the same way I treat my business finances. I try to keep cash in there and use cash appropriately. And many people will have said in the video from last week that it's nice to be in that kind of position. And I'll admit, I'm in a very, very comfortable position compared to where I've come from. And this is where I hope that, if you're watching it and you're a business owner, you've had financial difficulties, look, my story is not very dissimilar to anyone else's, and maybe not too dissimilar to yours. You may be struggling right now, but there is a way out. But the lesson here is you've got to be intentional. You've got to be intentional around your income, your expenditure. Earning more money is great, especially if you're employed, but you really have to focus on, what is your goal? The choices with your finances become a whole lot more apparent when you know what your goal is, why you're doing all of this for. And the decisions that we make financially are always going to be driven by those. I just happen to have a very, very clear idea of what my goals are. And like I said last week, I got rid of a lot of the wastage that I carried around for years. And being in a position now where I can take £82,000 worth of dividends from a business, invest, pay off a mortgage, that's a stark contrast from where I've come from. And I hope that it inspires you and it gives you some confidence that you can repeat this yourself. Because believe me, you can. You just need intention, and you may need a little bit of know-how, but you can reach out to me to work with me if you want to. I appreciate every single one of you for watching this. If you do have questions, by all means, leave them in the comment section down below. I might do a little bit more on, running your business finances responsibly, because that is a topic onto its own. But thanks for watching. I'll catch you later on.